Hi, my name's Kate Sargent from the Department of Primary Industries in Victoria. I'm the EverGraze project leader. Today I'm going to show you how to do a quick feed budget, how long will my paddock last, using the EverGraze feed budget and rotation planner. So previously I've showed you a quick tour of the rotation planner. Now we're just going to go into data entry. Okay, so the calculator that I need is a quick simple feed budget on how long will the paddock last. So I'm going to click on this one. Alright. Now, in my example, I've got a paddock that is 10 hectares in size, and my current food on offer. Now, when I'm working out my food on offer, I can work this out in two ways. The first way, I can use Table 6. Now, Table 6 gives you a guide as to the height correlated with the density of the pasture to give you how much feed you've got in kilograms dry matter per hectare. So in this particular case, I think I've got about 6 centimetres in height and a moderate density pasture, so it's about 1600 kilos per hectare. Okay, so I'm going to put 1600 in here. Now, the other way you can work out how much feed you've got is to have a look at the Lifetime Wool website. So in here, they've got a food gallery, food on offer gallery. And you can see that this particular picture here has 1500 kilos per hectare. This one's got 1700. I think my pasture's sort of somewhere in between, so 1600 is not too far off the mark. Okay, now in terms of pasture quality, the pasture quality in the calculator is measured in terms of the digestibility as well as the energy, and we've got a little description here as to what those different pasture qualities look like. So in my case, I've got a pasture that's fairly high quality. It's got about 15 to 30% clover in it, and so I'm going to say it's 75% digestible and 10.8 megajoules of energy per kilogram. It's important to have in there the pasture quality in calculating how long will your paddock last, because the pasture quality affects how much the animals will eat. So the higher the quality, the lower the fibre, the more the animals can fit in, the more they'll eat per day. Okay, so the consumption wastage factor. Now, the consumption wastage factor is basically how much pasture will be wasted by the animals in terms of their trampling, fouling, etc. So in here, this number I want to sort of have higher values if I've got a paddock that's wet or very heavily stocked, and so you're getting a lot of damage, or if it's particularly low stocking rate, you might actually find that you get higher wastage from senescence of the pasture. So look, most pastures sort of end up at around 30%, so I'm going to put 30% in. As a little bit of a guide, there's some instructions off to the side here. In terms of pasture growth, so the pasture growth rate of my pasture is going to depend on the soil fertility, the time of year, the temperature, the pasture species that I have in place. So Table 7 gives me a little bit of a guide in terms of, this is for temperate Australia. We've got different months of the year and poor to very good pastures. So this does actually give you a little bit of a guide, but the Making More from Sheep website actually has a bit more of a guide in terms of where you are and what kind of pastures you've got, what kind of growth rates you might expect. The best way to measure your pasture growth rate to determine your pasture growth rate is to measure it yourself. So to measure the pasture between two different dates over the year, get a bit of a feel as to how your pasture performs, and keep those records so that you know what figures to put in. So anyway, in this case, it's June. My pastures are pretty good, so I'm going to go with 20. That will do for now. Alright, now the desired food on offer when the animals are removed. This is a good question. So Table 5 tells you the minimum amount of pasture required to maintain your animals for different classes of stock. So this is one consideration for how low you should graze your pastures. So in my case, I have lactating ewes, and they have single lambs on them, and my pasture digestibility, as I said before, is good. So I'm going to need at least 1,000 kilos to maintain those animals. and I do want to maintain them. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is how the paddock is going to perform in terms of the grasses. So in this situation, I've got the MLA pasture ruler over here, which is another way you can determine your pasture availability. And you can see there's the red zone sitting there below about 1100 kilos and above about 2200 kilos. Now, what this red zone means is it's the time at which the pasture will be growing, the green area is the time at which the pasture will be growing at its fastest. So it's got good enough leaf area to be growing with lots of good solar panels, and not too much leaf area in that you will get shading. So to optimize growth, you want to have a minimum of 1200 kilos and a maximum of 22. However, that's not always possible. So at some times of the year, you're going to have to push your pastures a little bit harder, especially in order to have stocking rates to maximise your spring. So this 800 kilos per hectare is another benchmark to consider to maximise the persistence of your pastures. So you can graze that low on perennial pastures and still have them persist, but they won't be growing quite as fast. Okay, whoops, wrong sheet. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to say that I'm going to graze my pastures down to 1000 kilos. Alright, now the stock type, as I said before, are ewes. I've got, they're 60 kilos because they're crossbred ewes, and they're lactating, as I said, and the number of animals I have in this paddock is 800 ewes. Okay, so this basically tells me that my animals are going to consume 2.5 kilos dry matter per hectare per day each. Per head per day. Okay, the energy consumption per head is going to be 25.8 megajoules of energy per head, and the days that my paddock is going to last is 3 days. Okay, now I want to show you another few things in here. So if I change my pasture digestibility down to 40%, you can see that the consumption of the animals has reduced down to 1.2 kilograms dry matter per head per day, and the energy consumption is unsuitable. So these animals are actually not going to be able to consume enough feed to maintain themselves. I'm going to put it back up to 75% again. Now, at this level, if I have my pastures starting out at 500 kilos dry matter per hectare, and I'll say I want to graze it down to 500 for now to make it make sense, you'll see over here the energy intake is below maintenance. So that just means that while the pastures have enough quality, there's not enough there for them to actually maintain themselves. And you can see they're only eating 8.3 megajoules of energy per head per day, and you're going to have to supplementary feed those animals if you want to maintain their condition. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of how long will my paddock last feed budget, how that works, and I will do a few more feed budgets for you of the different types of feed budgets on this calculator in another series. So thank you very much. For further information, see the EverGraze website, www.evergraze.com.au.